everyone, and welcome back to the final chicane with me, Cristinanneboylan. Okay, Japanese Grand Prix race review. That race was boring. I'm sorry. It was so boring. The last two haven't been great, I fear. I mean, they've been fine, but I feel like if your driver isn't winning, then for everyone else, it's just like, can something actually happen in this race? Like, not even the grass set on fire. I was relying on the grass to set on fire to, heat things up a bit, literally. And there was nada. I don't even remember seeing any overtake other than Lewis Hamilton on Hadjar, a Ferrari on Visa Cash App or B. Honestly, probably the only overtake I actually did see. The race was as exciting as a free practice session, and I think free practice 2 was probably a bit more exciting than the race. But everyone has different opinions, and I'm sure there's quite a few people that actually found that race exciting. Maybe. I wasn't one of them. But we still have quite a bit to talk about. And I know the one thing on your mind, the one thing that you probably want me to talk about, well, I'm obviously going to talk about, but we're going to start with our final chicane brain game. And what you have to do is guess the driver who said this quote. So I'll read you a quote and you just have to guess which driver said it, okay? Suddenly I realized that I was no longer driving the car consciously. I was driving it by a kind of instinct, only I was in a different dimension. I actually hadn't heard this quote until I was looking up some quotes to do. So, which Formula One driver, past or present, said that quote? I'll tell you the little story behind it and what driver it was at the end of today's episode. I better remember this time. I've only forgot one time to do it, to be fair. You can't blame me for that. Obviously, just another media moment before the weekend started. On the gossip grid, we're on level Serena van der Woodsen. Yuki to Red Bull. Guys, I mean, I have been saying this for 2 years now. Well, actually, my podcast has only been going on for 1 year, so you don't know that. But I was saying it the year before. Yuki has finally been promoted to Red Bull. The car is... Okay, the car is the car, It's strong enough to get podiums. Once Yuki gets used to it, we could actually see a Yuki podium, which would be the most amazing thing. Obviously, Yuki hasn't had the starlight weekend that he would have wanted, but we can talk about that a bit later. I still don't view his weekend bad in any way, and I think Red Bull finally made the best decision to put Yuki in that car, which they should have done from... God, they should have done it from... I talk about this all the time. My dad actually said that sometimes he listens to my podcast, and every time I mention Daniel, he just skips ahead. But what should have happened last year, which I said last episode, was swap Daniel and Checo mid-season. See how Daniel does in the Red Bull. If he's bad in it, if he can't drive it properly, scrap him, put Yuki in there. Or put Yuki, swap Perez and Yuki. I would have been fine with either. But the fact that, so they got rid of Daniel, brought in Lawson, they should have moved. They should have, to be fair, they should have got rid of Perez and Daniel at the same time if they were going to get rid of Daniel. Perez should have went too. Yuki should have moved up. Lawson into Visa to get grips with Formula One. And Hadjar in. Hadjar, star of the weekend, by the way. But they finally somehow came to their senses, obviously at the loss of Liam Lawson from Red Bull. Incredibly unfair to give a driver 2 races and to expect him to connect with the car. Personally, look, Yuki needed that seat. Yuki deserved to be on the seat. And in that aspect, the decision was right, if you get me, but very cruel on Liam. He shouldn't have been promoted in the first place, but to promote him for 2 races was psychotic. It was just bullying, as people have said, which Max agrees with. It was very harsh. But not only that, but that could potentially ruin his career, because is Red Bull ever going to give him another chance if they saw how he's doing, even though now, he'll get more used to being in Formula One and driving a car. He should have had that extra time in Visa Cash App to get used to being a Formula One driver before he was moved up, and now they've sort of just, you know. But as Liam himself said, it is the driver's job to get used to the car and not the team's job to change the car to get used to the driver. So it is what it is. I'm sure Liam fans are very disappointed about that, but at least he's still in Formula One, and realistically will probably be doing better in this car than he would have been. He didn't do too well this weekend though. Not too well at all. We'll talk more about the actual racing though later. A bit more media moments revolving around Yuki to Red Bull and how this decision process was carried out. Yuki said that Gasly and Perez reached out to him first for support. He had a phone call with Gasly, and Pierre gave him, tips and things to look out for. Just Pierre has been through it. Pierre has seen the darkest side of Red Bull, and he obviously had some good tips to share with Yuki. Yuki said that they were very, very helpful. And then Perez also reaching out to Yuki, and Perez, I think, didn't Yuki say that Perez is like a father figure with his advice and stuff like that? That was so cute. I love Perez for that. And also rumours that Perez will join Cadillac are getting a bit stronger, so we might actually get Sergio Perez return on the grid, hopefully in a car that he's more comfortable in the Red Bull. Yuki did say that all of the Red Bull family reached out to congratulate him and stuff, not Helmut Marko. And then Liam also confirmed on the other side of things that he didn't know he was going to lose his seat in Shanghai, which isn't surprising. Like, that would have meant he had one race to prove himself, which that would be low even on Red Bull standards. But he got a phone call. I think he wasn't even sure if it was like the Monday or Tuesday after, saying that it might happen. And yeah, he found out basically over getting a phone call. And then I think Yuki was potentially told to prepare himself before Liam was told, but then he was told you can't tell anyone, so he didn't even tell his parents. He didn't tell anyone until like the day before it was announced. So everything worked quite fast. Obviously very harsh on Liam mentally. Being a Red Bull driver for 2 weeks and then not will be very tough, but I think in the long run it is better for him to be in Visa Cash App or B, and it is better for Yuki to be in Red Bull. He always deserved his chance in the Red Bull. Yuki started off the weekend confident enough. He said that he didn't feel, also Yuki's home race out of everything, haven't even mentioned that. Performing in Red Bull for the first time in front of all of his family who were at the race was so cute, and I'm just so happy that Yuki got to experience that. Even if it wasn't the most successful race, I just know that his whole family were probably so proud, as they should be. Yeah, Yuki was saying at the start of the weekend that he didn't feel the trickiness of the car that sort of the other drivers and simulator testers, my mind has gone blank, have talked about. He hasn't experienced that just yet, but he also was like not being too confident about it. He was like, I think I might be fine, but you never know, sort of vibes. And to be honest, during the free practice sessions, he was looking quite strong. So you could sort of see that maybe he didn't struggle in it as much as the others previously had. Yuki also confirmed that him and Liam haven't talked yet. They haven't talked about it, but he hopes that their friendship lasts. But he was saying that already. He said the first half of the season, so I don't know if he's talking about this year, because obviously there had been only 2 races when he said that. He said that he could feel a bit of distance, a bit of strain on their friendship before that. So I doubt they've talked about it. They probably just talked in general. And last bit of Red Bull news, which is actually the only news that we have for media, it's all about Red Bull, is the new livery, which was cute. Is the White Bull livery. I'm a fan of it. It did take me a little to get used to it, because every time I saw the white car, I would just assume it was like a Visa. But no, it was the Red Bull. So we're actually going to see Yuki in proper Red Bull gear next week, which I'm excited about. Can you tell that I'm like delaying the media moments as long as I can, because I don't even know what to talk about for the race, guys. Free practice one. There was some exciting parts of the weekend, especially for Red Bull fans, particularly Max fans. So there is something to talk about. I'm just being overdramatic. Let's start with FP1 though. Red Bull were struggling, I think, with the handling of the car, but they did have a strong enough finish with P5 and P6. Yuki like a 10th, I think, off of Max. So things were looking really promising there. In the Alpine, actually, in Jack Doohan's Alpine, we had the reserve driver Hirakawa in FP1, his home FP1 as well, which was really nice. You know, quiet but successful enough. He didn't destroy the car or anything. So nice to see a new rookie for free practice one. Sainz had this moment where he missed the pit lane. He, for some reason, thought that the Williams garage was at the end of the pit lane, and then his radio is sort of funny when they're sort of, you can just hear his engineer's voice get more panicked as they realise that Carlos was passing the pit box. You know who I had really high hopes for this weekend? George. I thought that he would be less discreetly good this weekend and more like out there good. You know, he's been good, but it's been like under the radar little. I wanted him to do something mad this weekend, but again, he was good, but like under the radar good. Again, which isn't a bad thing. But, you know, it just adds some excitement when someone is just like, boom. You know, do you get me? Do you even get what I'm saying? Probably not. So free practice one, yeah, Lando finished P1, Charles P3, Isaac up there again. Insane. That's honestly, Antonelli is an incredible rookie, but I feel like out of the rookies, Isaac isn't getting the attention and the, what do you call that? The like recognition that he deserves. Hirakawa also P12, very strong in the Alpine. And Lawson doing better at P13. Now FP2 is where there was a bit more drama, particularly red flags wise. Jack Doohan had a major crash. The car was in bits, which I know usually is a good sign because that means the car took more of the impact, and that's sort of what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to break into loads of different pieces. And I'm surprised that Jack was actually like completely fine after that, because it did look like a big crash. Basically, what caused the crash was that Jack turned in to the corner with his DRS open. I think that was probably unintentional because you have to manually close the DRS. But yeah, ultimately that did get the car destroyed, and I thought that there was no way that would be... I didn't think that car was going to race. But I'm also not a mechanic. Like, I don't know how to fix these cars. I don't know how long it would take either. But Alpine did a great job getting that car ready. Very impressed with them. Another red flag came when Alonso got stuck. And that he just got stuck. He got a wheel on the grass and went off. And then, you know, he just couldn't get his car moving again. Not that big of a deal, but that was it for him. See, this is because George was being a little feisty in these practice sessions. I thought, okay, he's going to bring out the dog this weekend. He was like racing Max by the pit lane, like out of the pit. But then Mercedes sort of just vanished a bit into the weekend. Good, but nothing spectacular. My favourite part, which was happening in Shanghai last year, was the grass setting on fire. I think the grass sets on fire because of like the sparks from the cars, from the skid plates, land on the grass, and the grass is just so dry that it ignites. I think that's how it works. And I guess it was a bit more moist, the weather, on Sunday. So maybe that's why there was no grass fires, but we had some grass fires throughout the weekend. It's sort of just funny though when there's a red flag and no one knows what happened, and then the camera just flashes over and there's a piece of grass on fire. Speaking of setting yourself on fire, Jacques Villeneuve was doing the commentary this weekend. You probably know how I feel about Jacques. Don't think he should be part of the Sky Sports team, especially not doing a whole commentary for the entire weekend. He's on Epstein's list. I mean, aside from his awful opinions and his negativity and what he says about the drivers, I'll never get over what he said about Daniel last year. Continuously, like his one job was to shoot Daniel down every time. But he's also on Epstein's list, so I think as are like 2 or 3 other people in the Formula 1 community. He is one of them. I don't actually know who the others are. I should look that up. But you know what? Also, Jacques, the hypocrite, said, he said, oh, maybe Bearman is doing so well this weekend because he's like positive and smiling. Like, not his exact words, something like that. But then he criticized Daniel to the moon and back for smiling. Like, what's he got to smile about? Stop smiling. Stop being so positive. What does he have against Daniel? What did he have? Daniel's not here anymore. He's no reason to talk about Daniel, and he didn't. If he started talking about Daniel this weekend, I actually would have got a butter sock. But see, take a shot every time I mention Daniel, and you'd be drunk by the end of this episode. Don't actually, especially if you're not over 18 or 21 or whatever your drinking age is. So yeah, I'll probably complain about Jacques Villeneuve until the day I die. He just riles me up, guys. Very few people I complain about ever. Very few people in Formula 1 that I dislike. He is one of them. Rant aside, let's move on to qualifying. Doing after that huge crash in FP2 was unfortunately the first out in Q1. Not a very successful session for him. But also, a crash like that would have to shake you up. His confidence going around the turns was probably decreased a bit. I think one thing that would make a racing driver insane is not letting a crash get to you, but that would be very hard. Even for Max, even for Lewis, that would be hard to do. And I don't know, because, it's not like Jack has been doing amazing in the qualifying session, so maybe he didn't let it get to him and he was just having a bad quali session. But either way, yes, he was out in Q1. I actually thought both racing bulls would be out, but they both managed to improve, which was good. Stroll Q1 ended, Stroll P20, doing P19, Ocon P18, Bortoletto and Hulkenberg. And Hadjar was having a nightmare of a weekend just because of his seat. He just couldn't get the seat right. He said that it was his seatbelt. He was being squished a little in his seat, which I don't know how you'd be able to drive like that. But his radio messages were quite fun and I said this quite a lot last year, but I really appreciate the communication that Mechis and the race engineers as well have with their drivers. Like, it was so reassuring. I would like that type of team communication. If I was a Formula 1 driver, they're like, oh, it's okay. I don't know what they said now, but it was cute. That's all I remember. Q2 was when Yuki definitely began to falter a little. He was looking strong all weekend, but he just had a rough session, and I'm not really sure what happened there. And typically enough Lawson did qualify him. I see, and a lot of people were like, oh, that just shows that Lawson shouldn't have been replaced. But then again, Yuki was still qualifying a lot higher in the Visa Catch-Up 4B than Lawson managed in his first race. Again, not a judgment. It's so early to judge, but I guess things are just judged really early in Formula 1 in general. So there was that. But Hadjar, again, my boy, again, through. I guess maybe Hadjar is going to become my new Daniel. I don't know. He's an icon. He's really funny. He's underrated as well. Bearman also through, which was very impressive. I was very happy for him with that. So yeah, out in Q2, Tsunoda, Lawson, Alonso, Sainz and Gasly. Then Sainz and Hamilton had a bit of an impeding moment of Sainz impeding Hamilton, which Sainz did end up getting a 3-place grid penalty for, so he was pushed back 3 places. Q3, I was like, okay, this is between the two McLaren boys on who's going to get pole, and then Russell's going to be up there. That was my prediction for qualifying. I wasn't even paying attention to Max, to be honest, because I didn't think he was going to get pole. I don't know if that's bad or not, but I just forgot that he was like a contender for a bit, to be honest. And then Verstappen got pole. He actually had an incredible lap, to be fair. I was rewatching the lap after, and I was like, this boy is insane, because we know that car isn't anywhere near the McLaren right now. So that was very impressive for Max. And he sounded so happy in his radio that I was very happy for him, and the whole team were really happy for him. It was just a nice thing. Like, every time Max sounds happy, I bring this up in my podcast. But I just love when you can tell how much it means to a driver. And also, you don't need over exaggerated reactions to tell how much it means to a driver. But I can always tell, you know? Like with Oscar, he doesn't react too bigly. Bigly? Bigly? Wait, I don't think that's a word. Big. He doesn't have too much of a big reaction, but you can sort of tell when it means a lot to him, you know? Especially like when he was like, oh, I just screamed inside my helmet a little last race. Anyway, we're not talking about Oscar, we're talking about Max, and yeah, and how insane he is. So it was a very close poll though. Norris 1200s, Piastri 44, Leclerc, Russell, Antonelli, Hadjar, Hamilton, Albon, and Behrman. Like Hadjar being up there went a little unnoticed as well. I feel like we could have appreciated him a bit more for that. But, you know, I was proud of him. That's enough. And wow, look at that. We've already made it to the race. So that means this podcast episode is going to end soon. Ugh, very clean start. I was happy to see a clean start because the starts worry me in Suzuka, but the weather was sort of perfect for the start. So they had a clean start. Not much overtakes. I think Yuki got past Liam, and I don't know any other overtakes, to be honest, that happened at the start. There wasn't much anyway. Max pulled away quite fast from Lando. I also like how like every time they're on the pit straight, they go into the puddle, because I know they're cooling down when they go into the puddle, and it's also on the racing line. But it just looks like they want to go into the puddle for fun, which is cute. I enjoyed that. That was my favourite part of the race, personally. Yuki did pull away quite fast from Liam, actually, is one thing I noticed. I think he was like 2 seconds by lap 6, which was quite impressive from Yuki and a little promising. A little bit of hope that Yuki fans can take from that. Now, Lewis had a nice overtake on Hadjar. It was a nice overtake. Obviously, very different cars, but the Visa Cash App Orbi, it's a strong enough car. So it was a nice overtake. I'd say most Sainz seem to be really struggling with the car he has been recently. This weekend especially, he seemed to be struggling with the car. So not much of a race from him at all. And there were a few different strategies, but they didn't make that much of a difference. I mean, Lewis was on hards and everyone else was on mediums. Apart from... Was anyone else on hards? Why have I gone blank on that? I mean, there were some early pit stops. I think Stroll pitted quite early, but then he pitted again also onto hards and softs. But Lewis definitely did start on hards. And he did quite a good job with them. There wasn't like... Obviously, the start would have been the struggle there. Charles would have been on medium, so he'd have a better start. But he didn't have a great... Like, he didn't have an incredible start on the mediums. Everyone else was on the mediums as well. But Lewis basically could have been on the mediums with his data from those tyres. So very good time management from Lewis, but also the conditions were sort of perfect as well. So yeah, as I said, Stroll was the first to pit around lap 15. Hadjar again was not happy with the seat. He actually, what was his quote? He had a funny quote. Hadjar's quote on his team radio was, "So I unlocked a new problem. The seat is moving. I'm okay, but the seat is not attached." Of course it's not attached. I like that I've unlocked a new problem though. It's like putting a positive spin on it, you know, like all the problems are in locked boxes and they'll just unlock them one by one. Then McLaren tried to fool us, and well, not us. They weren't trying to fool us particularly, but they were trying to fool the other teams by saying that they were going to pit, and then they didn't pit. Never works. I don't think it's ever worked. In the time I've been watching Formula 1, I can't remember a team that actually managed to trick another team into pitting. It probably has happened in the time I'm watching Formula 1. That's probably a lie. But yeah, Max and Lando then pitted lap 22, where there was like the only bit of drama during the race when Max had a bit of a slow stop and then Lando was already behind him going into the pit. So Max still got out before Lando, but they were nearly side by side. It wasn't an unsafe release, in my opinion, nothing like that. But then Lando sort of tried to go down the inside and ended up going onto the grass. Absolutely nothing Max could have done. It was in no way Max's fault. It wasn't a big deal from Lando either. You know, you see a gap, you go for it, but nothing came of that anyway, which was good. Alex was funny as well. Alex was just hateful. Oh my god, the Ferraris also. Alex and the Ferrari drivers, again took hateful to a new level. They just like to hate on their engineers, and it's my favorite part of every race. Alex, like usually when the Ferraris get a little passionate on the radio, there's some constructive criticism there or whatever it is, but Alex just called them to hate, to give out, and they were just like responding okay. And it's like Alex doing it as well, which makes it even more funny. But yeah, the Ferraris just hate their engineers, and it's funny, and it's not a big deal. It's just you're driving a car, things are intense. I know they don't actually hate them, but yeah. Hadjar was actually lapping quicker than Hamilton at some points as well. My boy, insane. That's all the notes I have from the race. Max won. I'm happy about that because things might be a little more promising for the rest of the season if Max can compete, but also like he's not winning, like the championship McLaren are, and it's sort of fun to see Max like try and go up instead of try not be brought down. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me, so I don't really care if it makes sense to you. But look, I think the season will be promising. I think there'll be some more exciting races. I think we just had 2 not so exciting ones. A lot of excitement outside of the racetrack. Like I think the most exciting part of last race weekend was the DNFs. To be fair, last weekend wasn't that bad. Oscar brought some entertainment. But yeah, okay, let's go back to the final chicane brain game, and I'll see if I have anything else to talk about later. So the answer to the quote, do you want me to say the quote again? Suddenly I realised that I was no longer driving the car consciously, I was driving it by a kind of instinct, only I was in a different dimension. Who said that? None other than Ayrton Senna said that in Monaco 1988. He completed one of the greatest qualifying laps in existence. 1988, there's no onboard footage of it. And yeah, he basically said it about that lap. He didn't win the race. He didn't win Monaco 1988. But I like that quote because that's what I think driving a Formula 1 car is like. Like you just have to rely on your body to know what to do, sort of. I don't know. I've never driven one. First of a triple header, and I have a busy 2 weeks coming up. Guys, I've got 5,000 words into my dissertation. I hope you're clapping for me because that's the thing. And my dissertation is on Formula 1. I'm thinking about Formula 1 so much that I finish making my TikToks, I finish writing down all my notes, I finish my podcast and editing my podcast. And then my dad comes up and he's like, oh, so what happened in the race? And I'm just like, no, I'm not talking about Formula 1 anymore. I get sick of it. I do get sick of Formula 1. Just at this point, because it's in my college work and then it's in this work as well. Sometimes I enjoy going to work to my other job because I don't think about Formula 1. I have to do other stuff. I have to use my brain for something else. So, yeah. I will say, so this was the last of the early starts for a while. And usually, since it's an early start, I manage to make my race recap on the Sunday, my podcast episode on the Sunday. But when the races get later, that's probably not going to be possible, so I'll probably have to go back to making it on a Monday. If I can film it on a Sunday, I will. I don't know if I'd get it edited also, though, on the Sunday, that's a problem. But I will always try post it as soon as I can, because I know some people might have stuff on Mondays that they listen to a podcast during, So, yeah, because right now I post at 6 a.m. every Monday, Ireland time. But yeah, that will probably change, but I will try and post it as soon as I edit it. I guess I'll just have to start doing that again, posting it as soon as I edit it. To be fair, if you're a member of this thing, like there's a thing you can be a member, and for that I post the episodes as soon as I finish editing it, whereas normally I'd wait until like the next day, 6 a.m. to schedule it to post. So yeah. Anything else we need to talk about? What is next? Bahrain is next. That is like maybe like a 4 o'clock start, sometime around that PM here, which is going to be different. I guess this is where we leave it until next Sunday. Obviously, I post on TikTok every day, really. So if you want to be updated on the daily basis, you can go follow my TikTok, cristinanneboylan X. And yeah, other than that, thank you for joining me again for the third race review. I really appreciate it. And I will see you for the Bahrain podcast Grand Prix review.